Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Podcast, tailor-made for Canadian mortgage industry professionals. Proudly presented by A Better Way Mortgage Group, this podcast is your trusted source for insider insights, market updates, and strategies to elevate your career in the ever-evolving world of mortgage brokering. Whether you're a seasoned broker with A Better Way Mortgage Group or an industry enthusiast looking to stay ahead, our episodes are designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the Canadian mortgage space. All right, we're back for another episode of the Mortgage Broker Podcast, and today we're continuing on with our Behind the Lender series. This series, as we've said many times, it's our favorite series. You know, we get a behind the scenes look at our lender partners, and not everyone runs their operation the same way, but this one's a little unique because we're actually going to go a little bit off script to our typical Behind the Lender series and touch on something I'll save for later on in the episode. But really excited to have Rachelle Gregory, SVP of Originations with MERIX Financial. Rachelle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Deryk Williamson and Jason Marshall are also co-hosting with me today. So we have all three of us. And yeah, again, we're really excited to just jump into everything MERIX. MERIX has been a great partner to us at A Better Way. We've really seen things pick up in the last 12 months. And yeah, we're really just excited to get into how it all started, because I know you're one of the founding employees, so you've seen it all.
Yeah, I started when I was 5 years old. So in June I will be with MERIX for 21 years. And actually we have been in 21 years in business. So I was the third employee when we launched as a company. So we launched in 2005 and I did the payroll and I was the only document specialist at the start. So
wow.
Yeah, they took me off the payroll really quick.
So you were the third employee. So
I was the third employee.
And at what point was the next employee hired?
Pretty quickly after. So for anybody that's listening that has been in the business for a long time, we didn't actually do our first deal till September of that year. But my role was to test the old system, which was Morty, which is the system brokers use to submit deals into our system to make sure it worked. So that's what my role was, just starting up. But it was really exciting. I mean, you guys know what it's like. Anybody that's an entrepreneur or starting a business for the first time, that first year we were standing literally around a fax machine waiting for a job letter to come in, and we fought over it. And then that ended after a while when things got really busy. But for a while, it was like, oh my gosh, we got job letters. Somebody's got to do it. It was exciting.
So going back, what year was that? That was 2005.
Yeah.
And so when did things really start to evolve in those early years?
So I think really when we launched MERIX, really it started to evolve really quickly because we were a completely different model. When we went into the industry and started as a company, we talked to brokers and said, what's the thing that really drives you the most to send business to a lender? And so they said all the same things: interest rate. I've got a really great underwriter. And we said, okay, great. What really ticks you off? What really bothers you? And they said, you know what? It's this post-funding process. I send my client to a lender, and then that lender 5 years later tells them not to talk to me again. And so we said, okay, well, wait a second. That's a problem we can solve. So it really started to take off because we started right off being a trailer fee lender, but right from the get-go, we included the broker in the conversation throughout the life cycle of the mortgage. And so things really started taking off in terms of being able to sell a different value proposition that nobody was talking about at that time. I think it was our second year in business that we made the top 10 lenders, which was really unique at that point in time in terms of market share. And so, yeah, things started taking off really quickly for us.
And are you like scaling with staff as quickly as you're taking off, or kind of how did that come to fruition?
I think that when you grow that quickly, it's really hard to scale with staff as quickly as you can. I think that any startup has lessons learned when you're starting things out. And so that was the fun part. I remember being an underwriter in like 2006 and 2007, and we would work until like 11:30 at night. We'd go downstairs, have dinner at the pub, come back in the office at 7:30 in the morning and do it all again. And we loved it because we were excited because we were building something together, right? And then we learned to staff up and get some extra help. So
you started with 3 people and 2005. How big is the company now?
So at that time, there was the executives and myself and a couple underwriters. And so now we're a part of MCAP. So in 2021, we were purchased by MCAP. So MERIX is a part of a large, really awesome company. MERIX ourselves is the sales function as MCAP as a whole. I mean, there's over 1,500 people.
I don't know if these stats are correct, but 29 billion funded. Is that like in
it's
total?
It's more now.
Okay.
Yeah. I was reading that and trying to get the information, but yeah, it's more now. And, when I look at the trajectory of MERIX just in the last 5 years, our growth has been fantastic. I'm really excited about it. I mean, MERIX was growing over 50% in 2026, and this is a year that, things have been happening in the market. So we're really excited about it.
So 50% year over year growth, is that correct? Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Like you have a very unique model, which I feel like, I mean, it is a copycat industry, and we're starting to see other lenders finally come out with the trailer model.
Yeah.
And like that has been very popular with agents now, where I think like, and we are totally victim of this. Like we didn't take it seriously when we started brokering, and really wish we did, because we have some brokers making 6 figures a year off of trailers. Maybe you could just touch on like, how that came together and how successful it's been.
So, I mean, the crux of the trailer model is that if we're going to try to retain your business for as long as possible, we feel that you should be involved not only in the compensation side of things, but also the experience and the communication. So when the trailer fee model was born at MERIX, we actually didn't start it. There's another company, Macquarie, in the industry that had brought it over. And when you bring up new lenders that are in the market right now that have trailers, people will always say to me, oh, like, how do you feel about that? I love it, because when we started lending and paying trailer fees, we actually did a roadshow with Macquarie, 2 lenders together, went on the market to sell this model, because we were like, well, if the message gets across, then there's value in that. Right. So the model really hasn't changed since we started 21 years ago. And so the broker gets paid upfront when the deal funds, and every year for as long as the mortgage is with us. I think that the value is, yes, of course, in that long-term revenue stream. But when the client calls MERIX and says, I'm thinking about moving, what do I do? It is required by the call center to say, have you talked to your broker, Dean or Deryk or whoever's the agent on the file? We can give you his or her contact details, and they can help you send that port over to MERIX. So it is that we like to call it the triangle relationship, not like a love triangle, like a business triangle, because it's always constantly referring the client back to the broker, which is really what's catapulted our model to be really successful.
Obviously the program's been around for a long time, but have you seen recently a lot more people going into the trailer model? Have you seen more brokers trying that lately?
I'd say in the last 2 years has been really interesting, because what happened was during COVID, everyone had really great business in, call it 2021. And so what we saw was people moved into our upfront model. So at MERIX, you can choose an upfront or a trailer model. And they moved into the upfront model because everyone was doing a ton of business, and business was really falling on everybody's laps, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. As we got into this renewal cycle that we're in right now, what we found was it's really hard to move clients from one lender to another. So we started engaging with a lot of brokers. And of course, our sales team, their job is to engage with people, but people were coming to us going, I just really don't want to work this hard. How do I make sure in 5 years I don't have to work this hard? So we've been seeing the trajectory of our trailer supporters go up pretty significantly. But the thing with MERIX is it's not, people are like, do I have to do all my deals in a trailer? And you don't. We always say you should segment your customer. So if you look at it and you say, look, this is a first-time home buyer, they're buying a 400 square foot condo. The likelihood is they're going to move quite often over the next, do that in an upfront model because you're going to be moving them often. But you've got a family, their kids are 7 and 10 years old, they have a detached home, they're probably going to stay in that home. So we have a lot of brokers who now we look at 50-50 split. They do 50% of their business in trailers and then 50% in an upfront. So
I've also noticed, like, especially with a lot of our agents, is they're getting to that age where they are thinking about retirement. They're not like 5 years away. They're 10 years away, but it's like now on their horizon in their own business. And naturally, I would assume that their clientele has grown with them. And so they're looking at their business like, okay, it's a client demographic, like you mentioned, that's ideal for this product, but it's also the broker looking at their own business thinking like, this might be a great way to kind of go off into the sunset, because as a broker, it is hard to sell your book. Yeah. Because what really is it? It's just a relationship that more than anything, like the client doesn't have to do business with you again, right? So you're really building enterprise value for your business if you have it, a good chunk of it with a product like this.
For sure. And I'd say that is definitely a huge facet of why people go into the trailer model. One thing that I always like to say to people is when you think about what's coming up in your lives in the next 5 or 10 years. So we spoke to a broker a few years ago and she goes, well, I just got married. I'm like 25 years old. I'm an agent. I want to have a baby. I don't get any EI. There's no maternity leave. So she said, in the next 5 years, I want to have children. So she actually family planned to say, okay, if I do X amount of business with MERIX for the next 5 years, I can guarantee that this is the amount of income I have coming in. Or my kids are going to go to university. Or I'd love to get an assistant, but I don't think I can afford it. Well, as your business grows, we have a lot of brokers who use that as the salary for their assistants. So then that's insulated. Because at the end of the day, our renewal rate is the same as most other lenders. And so if you know we're going to be giving really great rates at renewal, you might as well take advantage of getting paid for it too, right?
Well, and you touched on like the challenge that brokers are running into with renewals, but really like in today's market, I think there's this big buildup of these renewals because there's been 2 million renewals in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of brokers went into that with the expectation that they were going to close 75% of them. And I think the reality is you're probably closing 15% because you can't compete on rate unless it's a refinance opportunity. Like the straight renewal transfers is where these are just not happening. You're not moving those deals. So like this is where we've been pushing this for the last probably 12 months.
Yeah.
Is like, why have we not been looking at this? And I think most brokers, back to your point, is like, we used to look at it and there was a lot more refinance opportunities at the time because values were always climbing. Now we're dealing with the opposite of that, right? Like a lot of people, these people are actually getting stuck in those properties because they don't have the equity to refi and move out.
Well, and I think the other thing just to look at is when you look at yourself and your business and think about, why did I get into this? What is the thing that gets me out of bed? Is it that I love trying to fight with a bank to try to move them from one lender to another? Or is it that I love getting Canadians into homes and seeing that somebody got their first home and helping them? And if that's the case, do you want to fight tooth and nail for 5 basis points and buying down to switch them? Or do you get to focus on the fun origination side of things, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And like you think about the first time buyer who like historically maybe changed homes or upgraded their homes every 3.5 years or whatever the stat was, like I would argue that's probably going to change substantially going forward because the equity appreciation is not there. Is there going to be an opportunity to have enough equity to move up? Like that buyer might be better for this product now more than ever. And there's no harm to you or your client by putting them in this product. It's not like it's more expensive for the client. Like, so to insulate or protect your business from all these things we're talking about for that demographic, I think should be very much looked at. And when they get to a renewal opportunity, there definitely will be an opportunity to refinance them if they were 5% down or what have you. So there's a lot of reasons why I see this growing and continuing to grow. And like, again, to Deryk's point, like this is a big focus for us. And we started to see alternative lenders start to come out with this type of product. And I was going to kind of be my segue into like NPX, which is the alternative side of MERIX Financial. Maybe we can just touch on that. Like, is there a renewal program with MPX? And if not, is that something you're looking at?
So MPX, we don't have a renewal program right now. So, I mean, they can renew their mortgage, but there's not a trailer on that. We do allow switching from the MPX product into the MERIX product. It's interesting because I grew up in the mortgage industry on the A side and took over running our alternative side 4 years ago. And I think everybody often talks about that alternative client and planning to move them into the A. And I really thought that that was really fluid. It's interesting what we see is the broker will say, I've got a plan together. I'm putting them on the alternative side with a plan that after this 1 or 2 year term, we're going to move them into A. And we kind of see that falls off a bit. Now, it's interesting to me, and I don't know if it's that the brokers moved on to another client and they're doing less coaching. We find that we're having those conversations with the client in our call centers more often. And so we'll help them and coach them to do that. But I think that that's a huge opportunity for mortgage agents to take a look at their alternative clients because, of course, not everybody can move. And by the way, I run an alternative brand. We're not looking to move clients out of our brand. But if there is an opportunity for you to then move them into our A side of things, you become the hero too, right?
I think for a lot of clients, the alternative side is actually their forever home.
Exactly.
In a lot of cases. And self-employed.
Primarily, right?
Yeah.
Credit can typically be
our average beacon score is over 700 in our alt side. It has nothing to, I mean, there are bruised credit clients that are in there, but it's mostly clients that are BFS that need to be there.
Like we just had this conversation with one of the lenders, credit managers, and like the reality is most of these alternative lenders in Canada, their average beacon score is 700 plus, and 95% of their clients are self-employed. Like it's no longer the bruised credit, previously bankrupt, like type of challenged option for those clients. It's like literally some sort of an income challenge because they're writing down their income, or they have multiple jobs, gig work, what have you, right? So I don't think for a lot of these folks they even have a chance to move out of the
and what we see and where we have seen so much growth with MPX is because it's less about the beacon score. It's less about the income. It's actually because of the equity they need. So because we will qualify at the contract rate, that creates a lot more open doors for clients and at a 40-year amortization. So we have people that all day long would have actually qualified on the A side, but that will go to us because then on the alternative side, because they need more equity out.
Fair.
Yeah.
So like going back to like the journey of MERIX, when did NPX come into play?
NPX just celebrated their 10-year anniversary last year. So literally we were 10 years in business and we started alternative side. And I think you see this with a lot of lenders is they look at it and they want to augment the experience for the broker and the client to have that piece there. And so we were methodical about it and slow because it is not our primary brand. It is something to make sure that we can go slowly to make sure that we're achieving what brokers need. I think the under promise and over deliver really hits home in the alternative side because they are not black and white solutions. They're gray solutions. Primarily, we're lending in Ontario. We've just launched across the West. So in Alberta, BC, and we're lending also in the prairies in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And so we did this slowly with a select group of brokers, and ABW was one of them across Canada because we said, look, we don't want to be everything to everybody. We want to make sure that we create a really good experience.
Really smart, because we've seen lenders go too quick and have a lot of poor experiences, and it's really hard to recover from that. Really appreciate that.
I mean, just on the alternative market too, like now more than ever, we're seeing brokers that have previously not engaged in the alternative side of the business. Like now they're really starting to educate themselves, wrap their heads around it, and market for it. Because those are the deals that brokers control. Like we control that market. We're not competing with, Big Blue and Big Green and getting beat on rate, right? So brokers are just kind of taking back control of the files. And we always found when we were brokering, we worked with a ton of self-employed clients. Those people refer to you like no other because they understand the concept of business.
You saved me,
right?
Like you helped me, right? We actually changed our sales strategy because we went into the alternative market 10 years ago and we said, okay, find us who all the alternative and the B brokers are. And it turned out that was the wrong way to look at it because there are so many A brokers that are moving to alternative that totally need that support as well, right? So
we had a business like back in 2014, 2015, where we just helped brokers do B and alternative files because nobody wanted to do them. Nobody even knew how to do them. It was like, who's Equitable Bank? Like they didn't even know, right? Like where it's that you can't be a broker if you don't know this side of the business now. Like you're just, there's no way you're going to survive. So
in your experience now, do you see so many more brokers are much more educated in it now?
I think there's still been some reluctance to go all in because of like the amount of work that's involved to go through like 12 months of bank statements, if not 18 months in some cases. So I think there's still some reluctance to dive right in because it's hard to do those files when you're going through 12 months of bank statements and figuring out what income can be used before you actually submit the file, because maybe the client's considering, do I sell and then buy, and you're not quite sure what income amount can be used. And we've seen a real inconsistency on underwriters at all of the alternative lenders that we've been working with, that you're not always going to get the same income amount used at those institutions. Like you could have two underwriters that give you two different amounts, right? So where we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel is like the technology that's coming out to support this, like PureLend as an example, or Credit App, where you're actually leveraging the technology to analyze these bank statements and having transparency with those reports with the lender. So my hope is that like an alternative lender really spearheads that tech side of things and collaborates with the broker on the tech. Because then you have like true transparency with broker, client, and the underwriter at the lender.
So we just finished building our own underwriting system. We launched it with our MPX brand last year. As you know, a technology build. You feel like I feel that was that yesterday. So we are also looking at technology to integrate in that for us because we own our own underwriting technology. What's interesting to me is when I ask other lenders, if you're building efficiencies through what you're talking about, what do you do with it? Like, what are you doing with that efficiency? And I love the answers because I think that lenders are really thinking outside of the box, because it used to be, we're going to do a 4-hour turnaround time. So if we can do a 4-hour turnaround time, we can make this underwriter do like 13 deals a day and we like work them and now we say this as, no, I still want him or her to do their 6 deals a day, but now they have more time to call the broker and go through this with them, especially on the alternative side, because it's not black and white. You're not just getting a 4-hour turnaround time on a deal.
And it's like, I don't blame the lenders that, struggle to have underwriters give a consistent, approach to how they're going to use the income, what expenses they're using, what have you. Like these deals are all so different from one another, but the technology really supports like just a very transparent approach. And from a client experience perspective, it's way, way more enjoyable because they know exactly what we're pointing out as red flags, what we need to get more, maybe documentation on, invoices, what have you. So,
Well, it just takes a lot of the subjectivity out,
Yeah.
out of the underwriting and the whole process of the deal.
yeah, I just want to recap on the brand. So there's MERIX Financial, which is the trailer model, and then the upfront model is LendWise.
So actually, it's all MERIX
Okay.
now. So a couple years ago, we removed the LendWise brand. When you go into Velocity and pick a lender, you would just say MERIX Trailer or MERIX Upfront.
Perfect.
And then you would pick MPX. Everything was the same. It was just we had to reprint things 2 times just because of a comp model. So we got rid of LendWise. So everything was more
I think
consistent.
that was a smart move because maybe that might have been, what is LendWise when MERIX was the prominent brand. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. It was made things much more simple.
Okay, cool. That's why I wanted to point that out. Okay, so moving on, the acquisition with MCAP.
Yeah.
That happened in 2021.
Yeah.
Like why and like where has that taken MERIX since?
So I'm not sure if you're aware, but my parents actually started MERIX and Paradigm.
I learned that in the cab on the way here.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So came out of university and they said, we're starting this company. And I said, that sounds really boring. And I did it anyways. And I loved it. So we were doing incredibly well. And so as you know, in corporations, when you get to a certain size and your board is ready to move on. And so I'd say on a personal level, of course, it's a little scary, your biggest competitor buying your company, but MCAP has been amazing. And I say amazing because MCAP bought MERIX, and no matter what, when a company acquires another company, they expect they're going to fold them into them. They're going to be, I call it like a melting pot. You be like us. Yeah. But when I sat down with my boss and I said, look, what do you want me to do with MERIX? Do you want it to look like MCAP? Do you want it to look like RMG? And the answer was, if we were going to do that, we would have just folded, we would have gotten rid of the brand. Be different. Keep the voice that MERIX has because everything's going really well. So I'd say the benefit of working with MCAP is the structure, the depth MCAP has is one of the largest mortgage financing companies in Canada. And that comes capital and technology and all of those things. So we used to be a lender. If you were an underwriter, you had 7 different policies you underwrote to because there was 7 different investors.
Right.
So I always used to say it was like, do you ever watch The Price is Right Plinko? So, you would drop the deal in and like, oh shoot, like it's a secondary home, but like their hourly income and hopefully you would get to the rate. And so it worked really well for a long time.
Kind of like a broker.
Yeah. But the challenge is we'd give you an approval and then you'd send in docs and they go, oh, you know what? He's not salaried, he's hourly. And we go, okay, well, no problem. We can totally still do the deal, but the TDS has gone up a bit. So we got to change your rate. And the broker would say, how do I explain that to my client? One of the greatest things is we underwrite to one policy at MERIX now. And the best thing, I speak on behalf of our underwriters, is they have more flexibility to make exceptions now. And that's been the biggest change from a broker experience perspective. Happy underwriter, happy broker. And so it's just created a much more efficient experience.
How much kind of cross collaboration do you guys have? Like, are you guys in constant dialogue? Like, how does that look on the back end?
What? I have to say that that's been the most surprising thing about all of this is, as you can imagine, MCAP and RMG, they're my competitors. And so, you don't often sit down and share state secrets with your competitors about your business potentially, but we do that all the time. Like Megan McDonald and I probably talk on the phone once a day. And so just like brokers, there's enough business out there for everybody, but it's great to have people to shoot ideas off of. And the 3 of us, Megan and Bruno and I, probably couldn't be more different people from each other. And that's what I think is helpful. It helps to leverage other people that are different than you.
So there's 3 lenders, 3 different sets of policy.
Well, in fact, all of the policy, MCAP, RMG, and MERIX, is the same. So when I was a BDM, people used to say to me, can't you guys just have the same policy as MCAP? Like you guys have a different policy. And now that I have the same policy as them, they would say, can you just get like a different policy? So, but it works out. It makes it more simple.
Because if it's all the exact same, that makes sense. I was just kind of curious, before that, everything came in sync. Was there a world where if a deal came in through MERIX, it didn't work at MERIX, but it would work at RMG? Was there any conversation there to get the deal done inside of the tent?
No, because the policies changed quite quickly. Right. So maybe in the infancy, that probably did happen. We are pretty good at, look, at the end of the day, if a deal gets declined with MERIX and it goes over to another brand, like the policy is the policy, the underwriting decision. But it's really about relationship, right? And so we're not splitting an atom here on the A side. Like a mortgage is a mortgage. And so it's really, you send business to the lender because you really like their comp structure. So I'm a trailer lender. They love that. Or my underwriter, my BDM, my BRM, all of that is, why I send business there.
If you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
I'm curious, sorry, just going back to what you said about your parents starting MERIX, what was their connection to the industry? Like, how did that all come?
So my mom actually ran all lines of credit and mortgages at TD Canada Trust, and Boris, my stepfather, ran the broker channel. So she came from Canada Trust when they merged, and she took over mortgages and lines of credit. So when I was a little kid, she was a single mom. She was a branch manager. And so I grew up hanging out in the back of a branch at Canada Trust, counting money, which they would never let you do now. But yeah, so as happens with acquisitions, they got laid off. And so they had a bunch of people from the bank and they said, let's start a lender. She still wanted to start a servicing company, which was Paradigm Quest. And so her objective was, everyone's so focused on origination and price and nobody's focused on experience. So how do I start a company? So by the end, Paradigm actually serviced 17 different mortgage brands. So that really showed the strength of the strength of the service. Yeah.
Yeah, like you would bump into a Paradigm almost on most lenders when they started brokering. Right?
Yeah. And that wasn't really, and now that's is more common. We see lots of MFCs doing that, but they were really the infancy of starting that.
I was going to ask a question just so like cultures coming together with an acquisition, and we've been part of DLC from like the very early days. So, started my career, the MCC acquisition, and then Mortgage Architects. And it took a little while for them to kind of bleed those brands together. Like they still operate independently, but the national sales conference all of a sudden started to have, everyone go to the same one. And we actually found like the culture mixed really well.
Yeah.
Like they're still very different from one another, but it's kind of neat to see how everyone comes together still at the same time. Like how did that unfold within the group of companies, and like do you still have like your own culture and it, like how do you manage that?
Well, for sure, everyone at the start, it's like a bunch of strangers showing up at a party and be like, is that how you do things? Is this, and so you have to have the need to want to learn, I think, is the basis of that. And so all of the brands, and by the way, MCAP has these A brands and alternative brands, but there's a commercial side and there's a, so really every team has its own, call it culture, but they've blended together really well. So now my team's on the road and they're hanging out with MCAP BDMs and learning from each other. And so I think, again, there's lots of business to be had out for everybody, right? Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move a little bit into products and innovation, broker value, which we've kind of sprinkled throughout this. But, we talked about the trailer, the upfront comp. What would you say is like the next differentiator, and including MPX in that, when a broker's looking at the three brands of RMG, MCAP, MERIX, like what is the big differentiator?
So I would say not against MCAP and RMG, just really this is about all of the, in the industry. The trailer model is a big differentiator for us. The other piece about it is the renewal process. So if you are a status broker with MERIX, so let's say you have funded $10 million in a year, you get a designated renewal specialist. So that person's calling you once a month saying you've got these 10 deals are up for renewal. I'm CCing you on all of the communication. If they have any questions, I'll include you in it. That I think is because how many times does your client call you and say, oh, I called this company and they don't want me to talk to you, but I'm going to talk to you. It's awkward, right? So I think that's a big differentiator. I can also
tell you that unfortunately most brokers don't stay on top of that as much as we know we should, and there's easy ways to do it. It's just not happening as it should, and so that's almost forced business for you from the lender that you chose to work with.
So in my previous role for 8 years, I ran our servicing and renewal and collections teams. And so I came up with this idea of including the broker in the conversation. So this is about, 8 years ago. So I remember I stood in front of our executive team and I was like, okay, guys, I got an idea. We're going to give the broker all the renewal information. And they were like, are you nuts? And I said, no, I swear this is going to work. And I was sweating a little bit. And actually, I piloted with a broker in BC that is also a DLC broker. What she would do is, you get a designated renewal specialist, just like you have an underwriter. She would send a letter out to her client 6 months prior to maturity to say, hey, your mortgage is up for renewal. 90 days prior to your maturity date, a DIL will be reaching out to you to talk about your mortgage information. If you have any questions, he's great, but if you need me, I'm here too. Well, a DIL worked for us. So she incorporated us in her CRM program. And so her feedback was, I don't need to do anything, but the client knows that we're partnered. And so it's just made my process so much more simple. So does the process work with everybody? No. There's some people that just like love to move their deals and it is what it is. And so, we don't send you the information anymore if you're renewing, 40% of them. But that is a big game changer for us.
Makes sense. And you think of like the connectivity from broker to client relationship perspective, like how awkward it might be from a client perspective when you're constantly trying to suggest a different lender at renewal so you could get paid again or what have you. Like to actually, hey, we recommended this lender 5 years ago, like we're strongly recommending them again. And then also going to that next layer of introducing them to the renewal specialist. Like to me, that's the next level of the client experience.
That's such a good tactic too. Like you think about that broker and now a deal is worked into his or her process. But the other deals that go to other lenders, they don't have that process. So it just make you want to do more and more with MERIX, right?
Okay, so I just want to get into a bit of like the adjudication side of things, and not every deal fits. And there's times where, a deal just doesn't work and how that decision comes to ultimately getting there. So when we're working with an underwriter and ultimately they just can't get the deal done, where do they escalate it internally? And when does it make sense for a broker to go and ask for a second opinion?
So for MERIX, everybody actually at MPX2, you get a designated underwriter. So you're always going to deal with the same person. And I can speak as an example for Trisha, for your underwriter that you guys have in the West, is that she is a very experienced underwriter. What we feel, and when I say we, I mean from a credit side of things, is so often the broker will not ask the underwriter for an exception because they feel like, okay, well, that was what they said. I saw it in the commitment. She can't do anything about it. But in fact, calling an underwriter and saying, hey, I was wondering if you could look at it from this angle. Here's what I'm thinking. You'd be surprised how many times the underwriter will go, oh, yeah, you know what? That's okay. You know what? I didn't think about it that way. Let me get back to you. So that is how you build a relationship with the underwriter, is because it is their business, call it that they're underwriting their portfolio. And so they appreciate that respect. But now let's say the underwriter says, look, this is out of my control. Like this is the rule. I can't do anything about it. Even just that, do you mind if I go and ask your manager if they are able to make an exception? Just that courtesy, and why that's important, because on that next deal, they're going to see it come in and go, okay, he or she really respected me. I want to work really hard for them. So that next piece is that you should really talk to your BDM and say, hey, I want to escalate this, and they can help you do that. I think that sometimes the broker or the agent will escalate that to one of you to reach out on an escalation. But building that relationship within the credit center leadership for yourself, even if it's your first deal you've done with us, is okay. We're happy to talk to the three of you anytime. But I'm just saying that it is helpful for you to build those relationships. And it's all about approach. It's, hey, have you thought about it from this angle? I mean, when I was underwriting, 18 years ago, people didn't approach things in a very diplomatic way. There was a lot of yelling and stuff, but we don't do business with those people anymore. Yeah. So, but I think, most of us are kind and respectful. And if you approach it in that way, that you'll get ahead.
It's a good way for you to learn too. Like if you're actually having that dialogue, like, why didn't this work out? Like, Can you coach me through this? Like, and maybe on the next deal, it's going to help out. It's going to create more efficiency. That's a good way to approach it, right?
We're going to get into some communication conversation.
Yeah, we are
here. But I mean, you think about a broker that's worked with this client for 4 or 5 months, right? Like they have everything in their mind, and like translating that through submission notes that are this big and docs, like it's hard to achieve, right? Like unless you're actually a really good communicator and you can document the nuance and the why and the what in those deal notes, oftentimes you just have to make a call, right? And I think if you're not doing that, to your point, like the level of respect that you have to provide lenders to, like, those are the people that are approving your deals, right? And if you like working with MERIX, you're going to work with that underwriter over and over and over again. Like we put a ton of weight on that when we were brokering. We tell our brokers to do the same thing, because I'd rather have a good lender on my side than a realtor.
Well, it also goes back to what you were saying about not every underwriter underwrites the same. Is I often ask brokers, how many lenders do you deal with? And so some of them will say, I say, how many on the A side? And they go, I deal with 10. And how many on the alt side? 10. I go, do you know all those underwriters? No wonder everything feels different to you. So you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, but you should spend time understanding and getting to know underwriters.
Oh, the relationship is everything here. And I think you made a good point. It's like, it's funny how you mentioned like how rude some people were without saying rude. It's straight up like people were just extremely chaotic to deal with. They took it personally. They raised their voice. They name called in some cases. Yes, like you would cut those people off. We would too in our case. The one piece you mentioned is like, don't just go above their head, because like regardless of, you're being nice and you're being professional, just immediately going above their head is like cutting them at the knees too.
Yeah.
Like, so taking that time to have that conversation, I think is a huge takeaway.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Dean here. Quick timeout from the episode to share with you the ABW Tuesday Mortgage Memo, your weekly market highlights sent directly to your inbox every Tuesday. This is certainly one you're not going to want to miss, so make sure to sign up now. You can do so with a link in the show notes, or you can head to joinabw.ca and sign up there. This is a high-level summary of market developments, regulatory updates, and housing trends every Tuesday. So hope you enjoy it, and back to the show. Okay, so with all this, personalities and communication, one thing that we've been really focused on lately internally is just how to communicate with one another, within our team, within the three of us, our partnership with our lender partners, our brokers. We had this conversation with you, I believe it was at Dustin Woodhouse's event, where you mentioned you are now a DISC educator.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we thought we could flip the script, so to speak, and kind of get into your experience here and what you're doing with it and how, we can benefit from it and have a little fun today.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was running our call centers, I would listen to some of our calls with our clients. And of course, they all go as well as they can go. But you would hear somebody get on the phone with a homeowner and they would just like spew a bunch of information, potentially not listen or listen to any cues. And so I brought somebody in to do a DISC assessment with everybody. So if anybody doesn't know what a DISC assessment is, effectively an assessment that you can take, which will analyze your communication and your behavioral style. And it helps you understand how you communicate. But the thing I love most about it is how other people perceive you. So if you actually went in our old system, if you went into any of your clients' deals and you were in the call center, you could actually see their DISC profile because it was required that the person that talked to them will put that in and be like, oh, that person's a D. So the next person that would get on the phone would be like, okay, well, I'm not going to ask them about their weekend. I'm just going to get down to facts, right? Yeah. So that ended up really expanding to when I took over MERIX sales. I asked this question all the time to brokers, like, how many people started 2026 and was like, my goal is to figure out how I can integrate AI more into the experience with my clients so I can do things faster. Everybody.
A lot, yeah.
But who sat and said, my goal this year is to figure out how I can better connect with my clients so they'll come back to me and be loyal? Nobody, because they're like, I'm really good at this. I'm in sales. I can talk to everybody. We don't spend enough time being intentional in our communication with people because we just assume that everybody hears us as we're speaking. So I was hiring people to come and speak to brokers quite often, and it was pretty expensive. And then in 2025, I said, I'm going to take the course and take my exam and teach this myself. And so that's what I did.
If anyone hasn't done the DISC assessment or, other versions of it, it's incredible how accurate it is. And like when you're reading it, when you're reading your own report, like, holy shit, like that is bang on. Like, have you had that experience with, yourself? Have you had that experience just on your own DISC assessment, and how has that played out within your team and like just how accurate it is?
So I've been doing these assessments. I'm kind of an assessment geek, actually. Like if you call me and say I got a personality assessment, I'll do it. So it's interesting because you are impacted by your life experiences also. So when you take a DISC assessment, some people will say, oh my gosh, this is so accurate. A lot of people will say, this is so accurate, but if I took this 10 years ago, I bet you it would have been different because life experiences happen. I'm an I, which is an influencer. I'm very energetic. I want people to like me. I want to be your friend, but I generally don't like conflict and being direct. And so somebody that would be very direct to me, I would analyze it more. That's kind of my DISC style. But I've also reported to a lot of CEOs. And so I learned to be direct because that's how you learn throughout your career to deal with people that are of different communication styles. So the DISC style is a really great framework, but it's also, you're not boxed in a category. It doesn't get me out of bed in the morning to go look at spreadsheets, but I work in sales and that's what I had to do. So I had to flex myself to learn that. So
I think it's kind of interesting on, I've been introduced to this stuff over the years. One of my really good friends, this is what he did for a living. It wasn't DISC, it was another provider, but he would work with, mega companies and go and present to their sales force. And often the person that was taking the assessment, they'd want to be like, if I was an I, I'd really want to be a D. And that you're kind of playing to what you want to be, when really the benefit of it is figuring out what you are and then how to react differently to kind of get to the people that you want to get involved with. So I've kind of dove deep into this kind of stuff myself, and I think it's very powerful. And I think as we move forward, this type of stuff and understanding people and understanding personality types, I think that's what's going to separate us from the average kind of conversation you're going to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason why I asked is like, what's your experience of other people taking this and how do they feel about it? Because my experience was like, wow, it's so accurate. And the people I've worked with that have done this have had the same.
Yeah.
But like you actually mentioned to read a book surrounded by idiots.
Yeah.
And I read it after we had this conversation, and like I learned in that book that some people take it really poorly, especially from the educator that's like doing these for them and like, hey, you're like this and this, and it's like some of it's negative.
Yeah.
And they don't want to admit it or what have you. Like, have you seen that?
Yeah. So usually when I do a teaching class, so sometimes we can do it for 2 hours, we can do it for 8 hours. And so one of the things that I get people to do is to read their assessment, and I'll say, I want you to check off things that are like you, and I want you to check off one thing that is not like you. And so people will be like, I can take criticism. This is like, and I'll say, okay, but now let's think about you as a 16-year-old. How good were you at taking criticism then? Now I get you're cool and you're like so, strong and big, and they go, oh yeah, I guess so. So sometimes when you take assessments like this, what it's doing is getting down to the crux of what, we're all really great at being these people that is not natural to us, but any type of these assessments is about what's your natural state. So there's 4 DISC styles. So there's D, I, S, C. And D is somebody that's very direct. They're very interested in what is the end goal. So a D is somebody who, if you were a homeowner or a client, would get on the phone and you'd be like, all right, how long is this going to take me? At the end, what's it going to cost me? And oftentimes somebody might go, oh my gosh, that client, he's like really abrupt. But it's just that he's working on the end goal. He just wants to get to the end state of things. He's less interested in the process, more about the end. So I don't care how you got there, just get there so we can focus on it. That would be a D. So an I is somebody who is, we would call as an influencer. So an I is somebody who could go into a networking party and would thrive on meeting new people. Yeah, an I is somebody who would be interested to hear about the story rather than the numbers. So how did you get there, and what happened to the people, and like what got to the versus, the numbers and the facts. So, and then you have an S. So what's interesting is 2 of my sales leaders that run the East and the West are an S, and I'm an I. An S is somebody who is supportive. So an S is somebody who, if you guys are all out for dinner and there's a big group and everybody's been talking, they might say, hey, you, Jason, you haven't talked yet. What do you think about that? They're interested in harmony and support with the team. So oftentimes an S is a really great leader because they're making sure the team's supported and everything's cohesive. That's something that's really big for S's. And then a C, so this is where we really see our underwriters, our Cs. These Cs are really driven by process. In fact, the C is probably more interested on how you got there than what the actual end goal is. So a C is extremely protective of their work. So if you guys all collaborated in something, and I know Jason, you are a part of C, you would double check their work to make sure their work was accurate, because it is your pride to make sure that everything is accurate. So Cs are really great for accuracy as well. So you could be a mix of them, right? So you don't have to be one style. Most people are mixes of styles. And like I said, sometimes people change. So those are all the really great positive things about the DISC styles.
Yeah, it's really cool. We first got into this probably 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, when we were coaching with a guy named Tim Brahim out of the States. Okay. And he got us and all of our employees. We started with ourselves to do the DISC assessment, and then we did them for our employees as well. And it was so enlightening to see. Like, we literally just had awesome people that became good friends of ours, but they were never that great in their role. And we tried to continuously coach them, and they just couldn't figure out the underwriting piece or the doc piece or the payroll piece. And then once we moved them around based on the coach's feedback, these people, their careers just took off.
Because you're now understanding where they're coming from, right? It's not about, I'm going to fit you in a box. It's like, oh, you're coming from here. Oh, that makes sense now.
Yeah, and how to communicate with them.
Yeah.
And I mean, between, the 3 of us at the time, there was communication challenges downward. We figured out who could handle a certain partner to work with and place them accordingly. And it changed our business for sure.
Yeah, like pairing them with the right people, whether it was a partner, like this is when we were brokering. So like the lead broker was the right personality for that. Personality is the underwriter, the document fulfillment person. But also like the doc fulfillment person was a better salesperson. So like getting that, trajectory in the right, sense right as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then like realizing like the salesperson is a way better underwriter.
Yeah.
And just wants to sit behind the desk and crunch the numbers and, make all that magic puzzle happen, right? So
all our BDMs have taken it, and some of our underwriting centers, we take it together with them because sales and operations can kind of clash sometimes. So it's really great when you have, we've done it in brokers' offices where you have brokers, but then you have the underwriters, and then they go, okay, I get you so much better now. Now I understand where you're coming from, right?
You may have said this, but when did you start doing the disc assessment with your sales team? And after you started doing that with your sales team, did you see a lot more, maybe not deeper relationships, perhaps different ways of brokers working with the sales staff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got accredited to teach this last year, though they'd been kind of through some disc training throughout other avenues. So our whole team did it last year. It is now a part of our vocabulary. So even, in coaching conversations that I have, when we're talking about how to deal with a broker, the BDM will come and say, I need to figure out how to approach this. She is definitely a C. And so I want to make sure that I'm prepared, because what's going to be important to this broker is that the data is accurate and that I'm confident with it. So it's changed the frame of how we prep for meetings with brokers, because you can prep ahead of time and say, okay, I know that this is going to be the most important, because we've all sat in a meeting with the salesperson before, whether it's a BDM or what have you, and they come in and you go, wow, this was a waste of my time. I wasn't interested in anything you just talked about, and you were not prepared at all, and you just gave me the same boring speech that you give to everybody else, right? And so nothing resonated there because they didn't care to think about how you wanted to be communicated to.
we talk about this all the time, like BDMs that just pop into our office without notice. It bugs us from time to time, because like, not that we don't want to talk or have a chat. It's like we're not available, and then we feel bad that like we're leaving them out in their lobby or what have you. It's like, but there's just an example of like knowing how to approach somebody. It's like, hey, and don't just cold call. Like, this is just me speaking for myself, but if you text me and like, hey, I'm gonna come by tomorrow, you around? Like, no, not at 1 but 2. Like, then I'd like, it's a way better experience for them, and they're gonna get my full engagement rather than a short, like, maybe somewhat rude response.
Your disc style's coming out right now. I think it's a good point. Time for you guys to all say what your. So when we talked about doing this, we said, can I flip the script and ask you guys some questions?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I loved about your questions is it actually is a tool to help you kind of gauge what somebody is.
Yeah.
And so if you are familiar with the disc, like these questions, I think will help you kind of triage who you're dealing with.
Yeah. So do you want me to ask you the questions first, and then you guys can say your disc styles? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what is the fastest way for somebody to lose you in a conversation?
I mean, dragging the conversation out. I think the biggest challenge I have is if someone comes to me with a problem with no solution.
Yeah.
Because we've always been big on that with our staff, is like, if you have a problem, I want you to come to me with a couple of solutions. And like, I'm very solutions based, and my wife's told me that that's not always a good thing, but that's my biggest challenge. Like, if someone's coming venting, which I get, and everyone's going to do that, and I'm okay to listen, but if you haven't put any effort into the solution, I have a very tough time trying to create the solution for you. All the time.
Yeah. So you have an expectation coming with a solution, not just a problem. That makes sense.
I just know, like, I don't think I would ever pick up the phone and call someone with a problem without going, I think this is what we should do.
And do you think you learned that from somewhere, or is that just what you...
I think probably learned it working with these guys over the years, for sure.
Do you guys have any difference?
Seems like an attack.
It's your fault.
I definitely agree with that, for sure. I think what loses me quick is like talking in circles. Like, it almost seems like the lead's buried. Like they're burying the lead. Get to the point. Yeah. Like I say this to my wife all the time. Like, get there, like, with as politely as I can. Like, what are you talking about?
Probably edit that piece out.
No, she would totally agree with that.
I don't know. For me, I get lost in fluff of conversations in a ramble, or if somebody's coming to me like name dropping things or being braggadocious, stuff like that. That's where you kind of start to lose me.
Yeah.
I hit frustration points with things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just because we're all different disc styles, for me, what would lose me is too much negativity. So like Eeyore, like the sky is falling, there's no like you can't find anything positive about it, then that'll lose me. What kind of communication immediately stresses you out or frustrates you?
I would say like excessive like reasoning or substance.
Yeah, over explaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, again, probably for me, it's more just that direct coming at me from a blunt perspective, like forcing their hand without giving me factual reasoning to it.
Yeah.
I like to kind of break down an answer and think about it more than just, this is the problem, just throwing things at me and having to deal with it.
Yeah, and I think like to Deryk's earlier point, like the whole like coming with a problem without a solution is like would also add stress to this. And it's also the scenario, the situation of what's going to stress me out. Like over analyzing is a big one that just leads to like not making a decision.
So when you hear Jason's response to what he was saying about wanting to like break down the detail, is that like a frustrating way of communication to you, or do you guys appreciate that because it's maybe different than how you guys are coming?
I'm very similar to that.
Yeah.
I need to break it down, understand it, think about it.
Yeah, I get to that.
Like we're in therapy right now.
I get to the result or the solution quick.
Yeah.
And less analyzing. So they're going to want it broken down. So I'll just prepare an idea for that.
Yeah.
With more thought, more
because you guys work together for a long time, so you know how you're going to.
Yeah, so it's back to like adapting to who you're working with, who you're communicating with. I know that going in, so like that could stress or frustrate me out with somebody that throws me off.
Yeah.
I'd say one thing about you though is like you may want to get to it quick and seemingly like you don't analyze it, but we've had lots of conversations where it seems that way, but down the road in a few, like maybe 5-6 hours later, you've kind of analyzed it and then you kind of talk it through a little bit more. Like, I don't think it's just cut off and dry. It's maybe it's just analyzed a little bit further down the path.
I'm very strategic, but I like think about it in my own way, so many different ways, so like, yeah, they may like, there may be something coming back that's against it with, or looking for more. And then I will circle back quickly with another angle.
Got it.
Like I kind of set expectations. I think most people probably do this. And I think from years of brokering and now running a brokerage, and we have a lot of people, and you really need to think about what you're saying and how you're saying it. Like any email that I send out goes to 500 people. Like you have to be methodical. You have to be thoughtful. And I just think you can always tell when someone's not putting yourself in their shoes, right? It's like the example that you bring up of someone just calling you. If I just picked up the phone and called you and didn't leave you a voicemail, didn't send you a text, and I'm expecting you to call me back. Like I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would send a text and say, hey, I hit your voicemail. Can you call me when you get a couple minutes? Nothing urgent.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that it stresses me out because I think it's just me thinking, why is that person operating in that fashion? Right. Like it seems disrespectful, although I totally understand that person's not thinking like that on their side. If that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. So then moving on from stressful, what type of people energizes you? Like what's the type of person that gives you energy?
Yeah, that was an interesting question. Curiosity, I think, is kind of where I landed. Like people that want to go deeper and actually have a conversation. It's like talking to a broker about a deal, right? And you start talking about lenders and policies and the where, what, and why. And someone that can continue the conversation, I guess, is important to me.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it would be like someone very similar to me, like fast paced, has a lot of ideas, not like always looking to me for the ideas.
Yeah. So you like to collaborate.
Yeah. We've been chatting with Gary Morris a lot in the last couple of days. And like that's...
What kind of disc style do you think Gary is?
High D.
Yeah.
Like that's an example of someone that energizes me when I'm speaking to him. Very motivational. Like those are things that like will certainly energize me.
Like somebody with a bit of excitement, and like if you can tell they have a passion for something, or if they're like talking to you and they're like kind of coming to you for advice because they're excited about some venture that they're going to take on. I like and appreciate those conversations.
Yeah, like it's like passion. Like it's like they're selling you, but they're not. They're not selling you. They're just very passionate about what they're talking about.
Yeah. And I think as humans, we're attracted to communicate with people that are like us, right? So we often find that people with their different disc styles, like the two best friends are I's or C's because they get each other. One thing that this is outside of, I would say, disc, but that I've learned in my career is the people that I learn the most from are the people that I force myself to spend time with that I normally wouldn't have. Mm-hmm. So I used to spend time with our chief risk officer, who I could tell you, like, we wouldn't just sit down and have a coffee because, it's boring to me. But it turned out that he had the best marketing and sales tactics and ideas. And it was just, you just kind of paint people in one way. Yeah. And so it's really about spending time, like looking beyond that, right? I think this is an interesting question. When the three of you disagree, what does that usually look like?
Let the D start.
It's probably me coming in hot with a vision and not providing the context or the reasoning of why I think we should go.
Amazing. We're doing it. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
I think something that we always do, and probably too much, is like we're always putting bullets in the other people's ideas, which is a good thing because you filter through like, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Is it going to piss people off? Is it going to make enough people happy to make it make sense? Is it worth our time?
Yeah.
So a lot of these I mean, not if it's something small, but if it's something big that we want to do, there's usually multiple conversations.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it even gets to a point where like we can't, and this doesn't happen often, but if we can't agree on something, structure, whatever it might be, we'll go to a third party and get advice on it.
Yeah.
Because we'll have a different opinion on whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it's rare that happens, but that's typically kind of the process.
I've been using AI a lot lately where I built personas for certain things like
Do they have names?
no I will name them though, but like a corporate lawyer or a real estate lawyer persona, so it's like it's programmed to give me the advice on that, or like a mergers and acquisitions, or you know, any sort of like accounting, whatever it is, where you can kind of flush out your quick, like I'm always ideas, I have so many different ideas in a day where I can flush them out and be like, oh, quickly just kill it, so I won't even bring it.
That's why voice text is good, because you're not typing.
I'm like my whisper has a lot of words.
I think it like inherently people don't like to feel like their ideas are shot down or their thoughts are shot down. So typically if you come to the table with something that's disagreed upon, you're like, well, what the hell? Like you shouldn't disagree with me. I think we've all kind of found a really good respect level, or maybe like know how each other communicate, to know if your idea is getting shot down, it's not because it's wrong, maybe it just has to be thought through a little bit more.
Yeah.
Our communication style it's helpful that we're all in the same office together and conversations happen frequently, but I think, you know, all three of us think a little bit differently, and it's okay to poke holes in each other's ideas as long as everyone's getting the respect of being heard. And I think that, like, if you know that you have that between partnerships, then disagreements don't really matter because we're all just working towards finding the best solution possible.
Yeah, I think you mentioned like earlier, like you do change, your disc will change. I've definitely seen mine change, not dramatically, but I have seen it change where I'm like, I am pressure testing my own ideas and visions now far more, especially like with AI and what I have available to me from that front, but also like jumping too quickly in decisions and making mistakes.
For sure. And I think, you know, the word disagree, everybody thinks has a negative connotation to it, but everybody thinks differently. It's okay to disagree. Our credit leader that runs our credit center, she and I, when we first started working together, I would say we didn't just disagree. We just like quietly didn't disagree or didn't speak about things. So as a great example, I'm an idea girl. So it's Monday morning. I have an amazing idea. I thought about it over the weekend. This is what we're going to do. And she never looked really excited about it. And so finally I said to her, and I did disc training with all our senior executives at MCAP. And I said, I got to ask you, like, you're never really excited about my ideas. Like, what's up? Because Rachelle, you always come and you're excited and you're like, they're guns a-blazing and this is going to be so great, but you never once think about what if it doesn't go well, or what's the risk? Or so like, if you want me to be excited about it, I'm going to be excited about it, but you need to tell me if this doesn't go well, X, Y, and Z could happen. So now every time I have something, even though I don't want to, because I don't love that negative stuff, I'm like, okay, fine. If this doesn't work out, then these three things could happen. But now I can get her on board to have that conversation with me because that's what's important to her, right? So which one of you is most likely to make a quick decision versus overanalyzing it? Who's the overanalyzer of the three of you, do you think, the most?
I would say Deryk.
Yeah? And who's the quicker decision?
Probably me.
And you're just in the middle.
I probably lean Deryk.
I probably fall right in the middle, depending on who's happier that day. I'll side with either Dean or Deryk.
Depends on what you want out of them.
Who didn't pick on you?
And then which one of you needs the most detail before making a decision?
I would say probably the same.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're really like holding things back, eh? You need somebody like
rails here.
Yeah. What is something that you would say, Jason, that the other two had to learn about the way you communicate? Do you feel like they had to make any adjustments as you guys have been?
I think probably like as you just like anybody, as you start to get to know each other and work together, I mean, there's always adjustments that have to be made. I mean, I think maybe for me, I can overanalyze things or maybe make some things seem bigger than they are, or different than they are. So, you know, I'm not as quick to make a decision as perhaps Dean would be or Deryk in some scenarios. But, you know, I think maybe it's little bit of patience has to be involved.
Yeah. So Jason, because you're a CD, so you have C in your disc style, does that make sense? Because process and preparation are important to you. And so it would make sense that it could take you a little longer to get to an end goal, but it's probably because you're analyzing options.
I'm more quiet. I'm more of a thinker than a speaker.
Yeah. What do you think about you?
I would say like enthusiasm. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm like sold on it. I may just be thinking out loud.
Okay. Need time to process it.
Yeah, like I'm still going to process it. So like whatever I just verbalize might not be like,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I might not own it yet, but when I do, like I am speedy to that decision, and like that's just how I process.
Just read a high five. You're not,
yeah.
I'd be the complete opposite. Like my silence isn't necessarily a bad thing
Yeah.
after an idea comes in or whatnot, just because I typically need some time to think on it and think of the process and the mechanics and the potential flaws in it.
So I think that's a really good lesson. And if anybody's listening to this that is a leader, is we often come with an idea as a leader and you've already thought through it. And so people are like, okay, I've got this idea. And so every Monday morning I have a sales call. We bring all the leaders in and I would give an idea. And after we did this disc assessment, my 2 sales leaders came to me and said, look, I know you don't look that excited after every time you give an idea on a Monday morning, but we need time to think about it. So can we have a follow-up call on Tuesday morning, which is a 15-minute one, so then we can come back as like, in order for us to get on board, we need to think about the details a little bit more. So I think it's important when you're thinking about leading teams and understanding how they receive information. It's not just about communicating, because you could be on board. You just need a minute to process it.
How you push an idea, like I may really push an idea hard, might just be strategic. It's not actually personal if it's, not accepted.
Yes. So you being an ID, that enthusiasm, that influencer style would make sense, but you pushing to get to an end goal would be indicative of you having a D. But you are a total D, only D, nothing else. You are a strong D.
Yeah, which is very interesting. When we did these 8 years ago, I think that was high IS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now when you read your disc style, now that it had changed so much, did it resonate with you, or did you feel like, yes, I've evolved into this, or you still feel a little bit about that?
I felt a little bit off.
Yeah?
To be honest with you, yeah.
And it's interesting to think about maybe like where you were at that day when you took the assessment too.
Yeah. Dean might have just thrown an idea at me.
Yeah. And you were feeling not enthusiastic about it at all, and you had to move it off. So I think, part of all of this is not necessarily to be every piece 100% accurate, but to be able to open the idea to think about where you're communicating from. And I also think that the humbling piece is how other people see you, because never in your life are you ever going to truly know how other people perceive you, which is kind of a scary thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I think it's just like so cool how it does change. It does evolve with your own experiences and people you're surrounded with. Like you will change. And that would be my question to you, is like, how often would you suggest doing this?
So I don't think this needs to be like a once a year thing. Maybe you are changing, evolving once a year. I don't think that, but I would say what's more important is keeping it as a part of your everyday vocabulary. And so when you think about, a team like yours or a bigger team where you introduce this within your brokerage, is it really changes the way that you connect with people. And we keep talking about business, but this has really changed the way I connect. I have 3 teenagers, and how I connect with them, or how you connect with your spouses, because you go, I can't believe she just said that. Like, that is ridiculous. Oh, wait a second. She needs to understand the detail before she comes to a decision. So we become more understanding humans.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Maybe before we close, like I really enjoyed that, just getting those questions ahead of time too, and the way I answered them was really helpful. I'm curious, so like you've been doing this now with other people like us that are your accounts, and have you seen any broker implement this and with success, and how did they go about that?
So I actually was working with a broker who we did this training, and then she had a bit of an aha moment because she had a client. She was a first-time home buyer. She was working with her for a year. She was very concerned about the process. She always wanted to know, okay, what's the next step? What's going to happen? When do I need to prepare for this? Will this go really fast? So she said, even just buying the house, you could see it took her a while to get there. So finally, the house was closing in 3 weeks. They had a file complete with her lender. But another lender came and had a whisper special, and that whisper special would have given the client 20 basis points lower of a rate. So the broker jumped on it. She's like, I'm going to be a hero. She calls the client. She goes, just so you know, we're going to go and move you to this other lender because they're going to give you this better rate. It's going to save you this much money. I'm going to have to get a couple more pieces of paper, but don't worry, we're going to save you money. And the client called her the next day and said she was going with her credit union. And so she's like, I got to ask why. And she goes, it just freaked me out. Everything was done. And then you moved. And I just felt so unstable with what you were doing that I just went back to my bank. So that person was an S. An S does not like to be rushed. They need to be in a stable. You can read those cues really early because they want to make sure of everything of the process and make sure that they understand everything. We always say price is so much more important, but it's not always the most important thing. And to her, that stability was the most important. So she said it was a good learning for her.
I like that. Yeah, it's a great story. So as we wrap up, like any advice for brokers in closing, like whether it's, evaluating MERIX as a lending partner or just improving their sales approach and practice?
We spend a lot of time planning for the now of how am I going to get leads now? How am I going to prepare for the next year? But I think it's important for any broker, regardless of where they are in their career, to think about where am I going to be in 5 years? What does the business look like that brings me joy? Because of course I want you to send business to MERIX and of course I want you to earn trailer fees. But I think the point is actually in our careers, we want to live a life that we love. If in 5 years, I don't want to work 50 hours a week. I want to work 30 hours a week. And I want to be able to do that because I'm going to have a kid that's 7 years old and I want to be able to take her to the park and do all those things. So what do you do to prepare for that? When you're an entrepreneur, it's planning for your long-term business goals and figuring out what fits in that. Because look, I truly believe, and you guys are from BC, so you guys do this better than we do, is that we work to live. And so we all love our careers. But why I say that is because we talked about building a tangible book of business. I use the word Rolodex and people look at me like I'm old, but if in 10 years you want to sell your business, what are you doing now to build a tangible asset of your business that 100%. You can show for something? Or if in 10 years, like we have a broker who spends 6 months of the year in Costa Rica. She only works in Canada for 6 months and she lives with her trailer fees for the other 6 months and manages her business. So it's, what does awesome look like for you in your life? And I would say, talk to anybody that works on my team because the training we give them outside of this disc stuff is to have those big picture conversations. We can sit and we have a calculator model that would also show you, if you want this amount of income in 5 years from now, on top of whatever you're doing, here's what you need to do it. So we can have those strategy conversations with you too. So.
Well, that story you told about the broker that pre-planned that because she knew she was going to have kids, like that's something that I've actually never thought of when you're positioning a trailer model is, okay, like this is my roadmap in 5 years and I should actually start positioning business in that direction for those reasons. That's a big takeaway point for me that I think a lot of brokers should listen to. If they're going to pick anything up, that's one high point for me.
For sure. And when you look at our business, the broker market, is I see incredible longevity. What's really exciting is I was just in Scotland. The broker market has 85% penetration in the broker market in the UK, which is crazy. I think what's most important for brokers is to not be transactional in their business because this isn't transactional. If you want to keep spinning your wheels and be transactional and chase the next 5 basis points, you can do that. But I think it's about building long-term value to your business because that's what builds loyalty for your clients too. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Maybe before we go into your final thoughts or anyone else, I just want to thank you for doing this. The DISC assessment has been awesome. And our agents listening, we have, a really cool event that we're going to be doing around this. And so more to come there, but I just wanted to tease that. And yeah, any final thoughts?
I talk about this a lot is in a world that's going more and more towards automation, the ability to build relationships with our clients and our business partners. I personally think, and I don't even know if I'm right or wrong in this, but I personally think that is going to be what's going to keep you a very successful long-term career broker, is just understanding and perhaps even learning the ability to build those relationships even deeper. I think that's going to be one of the big things going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Communication is probably the number one life skill that you need to have, right? And the amount of people that A, just don't even know about DISC, fair enough, or B, don't put the effort in to understand your personal situation and how others perceive your conversations it's mind-boggling. And I think everyone should engage in this and spend the money and the time. And again, to your point, it's not just work, it's your kids, it's your wife or husband, your parents, right? It goes a long way. So yeah, this has been great. Thank you.
Well, if for anyone that wants to connect with MERIX, merixfinancial.com. So for our brokers or any brokers that are listening that are on our tool Brain MB, if you search whatever province you're searching in, we have all the contacts for MERIX updated there. So you can find anyone in your respective province through that resource, or just go to merixfinancial.com.
merixfinancial.com. I love to geek out and talk about DISC and communication. So if anybody reaches out to me, you can reach out to me through social media or Rachelle.Gregory at merixfinancial.com. I'm happy to talk about this. My whole team is also trained in this as well. And so they love having conversations. But, be humble and learn about how other people want to be communicated to. I think the line that I've had to say a lot is AI doesn't build loyalty, but people do business with people they like. And so if there's anything you can take away from that is be likable and listen to people, because you'll go really far.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. And I really appreciate it, Rachelle. Thank you.
Fun.
Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channel on your preferred platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your support is incredibly appreciated. We also welcome your reviews and feedback, which are crucial in helping us deliver outstanding educational content. Feel free to share your thoughts. A 5-star review would be fantastic if you think we earned it. Now, a message about something that means a great deal to us and to everyone at A Better Way Mortgage Group. City Reach Care Society is our chosen charity partner for 2026. For over 20 years, City Reach has been serving thousands of vulnerable individuals, children, and families across Greater Vancouver. They call themselves the Hope Business. When you see what they do, you'll understand why. Through their Food for Families program, City Reach provides fresh, nutritious groceries to over 4,500 people every single month. They partner with 54 schools across Vancouver, Surrey, and the Tri-Cities to make sure kids have access to food, hygiene supplies, and the support they need to thrive. Every August, their Back to School Blast puts backpacks filled with school supplies into the hands of 1,000 children heading back to the classroom. Here's what makes your support go even further. Every single dollar donated to City Reach translates into $10 worth of food for families in need. You can learn more, donate, or sign up to volunteer at cityreach.org. That's CITYREACH.org. Once again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.